everyone, and welcome back to Doodling Through Education. It is week 22 for my CC students, and we have a history episode for you today. Today we're going to be talking about the fall of communism in Eastern Europe and how the Soviet Union's General Secretary responded right before the fall of communism to the other dictators in other countries around the Soviet Union during that time, and how that actually impacted and helped promote the fall of communism, along with the actions that Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher did. So, remember, if you haven't yet, to go ahead and subscribe to the Doodling Through Education channel so you never miss an episode from us. And on that note, let's go ahead and start doodling. In 1987, Ronald Reagan gave an inspiring speech in Berlin calling on General Secretary Gorbachev to tear down this wall. This statement was in reference to the Berlin Wall in Berlin, Germany at the time, which separated East and West Berlin. The official purpose of this Berlin Wall was to keep so-called Western fascists from entering East Germany and undermining the socialist state. But it primarily served the objective of halting mass desertions from east to west away from the socialist side. In last week's video, we detailed Ronald Reagan's impact on the fall of communism and how he was a hero of sorts. The impact of Reagan's administration and its support of the political aspirations of Eastern European and Soviet citizens was vast and far-reaching. The new Soviet leader, who we briefly talked about last week as well, Mikhail Gorbachev, also came into power in a vital turning point in history and has been written about in history books ever since. He focused primarily on reform by restructuring and providing transparency in his administration. The growing dissatisfaction with communist regimes from the public was coupled with Gorbachev's at first secret and then progressively more public policies. The Soviet Union had also begun to refuse military intervention supporting any other communist regimes. With this line drawn in the sand, communist policies started to fall apart all across Eastern Europe. On February 6, 1989, negotiations between the Polish government and an underground labor union named Solidarity had begun. By August 24th, a man by the name of Mazowiecki from the Solidarity Party was elected the first non-communist prime minister in Poland and all of Eastern Europe. Drastic changes were also happening in Hungary as well. Hungary was already a very liberal communist government and at this time decided to open its borders to the West. Due to this, many Germans were able to escape to Hungary. The Hungarian party then removed its leader and agreed to their own round-table talks with the opposition. By October 23, 1989, Hungary had adopted a new constitution, allowing a multi-party approach with elections. The economy began to then collapse in East Germany, which led many Germans to attempt to move west. Gorbachev cautioned the East German leadership of the need to reform. 2 weeks later, the leader of the East was forced to resign And on November 9th, 1989, the world watched on television as the East German government announced the opening of all German borders. The Berlin Wall then came down to cheers. This made events begin to snowball in the fight against communism, and the fears of the Soviet Union's response began to diminish. From Prague to Bulgaria to Romania, protesters were taking to the streets and communist rule was being overthrown. By the summer of 1990, all of the former communist regimes in Eastern Europe were replaced by democratically elected governments. The Eastern and Western economies then started to reintegrate in Berlin. The fall of the wall represented a true shift in the balance of forces from communism to freedom. President Bush and Gorbachev met in Malta on December 2nd, and one of Gorbachev's staff was quoted with saying, "They burned the Cold War at the bottom of the Mediterranean." And that's all I have for you today regarding the fall of communism. The fall of communism happened not too long ago, so go and talk to your grandparents or even your parents and chat with them about what it was like when this happened and where they were when they heard that the wall had fallen in Berlin. And on that note, remember to be kind, follow God's will, and take care. Bye.